The Weight of Silence. Chapter 1. The first time Evelyn Ward saw Vale and Mercer Technologies' CEO in person, he was standing at the far end of a glass boardroom while three senior executives quietly unraveled beneath the weight of his silence. New York glowed behind him in fractured ribbons of rain and light, 40 floors below, and despite the $7,000 suit and the controlled precision in his posture, there was something almost dangerous about the stillness of him, as if Alexander Mercer had mastered the art of restraint so completely that everyone else in the room had forgotten how to breathe. Evelyn noticed all of that before she realized she was staring. "Ms. Ward." The voice beside her snapped the moment cleanly in half. She turned from the boardroom windows to find a sharply dressed assistant holding out a security badge. "You'll be shadowing investor relations this week. Conference materials are already uploaded to your tablet, right?" "Thank you." The assistant gave a polite nod and disappeared into the movement of the executive floor with the efficiency of someone accustomed to billion-dollar emergencies before breakfast. Evelyn clipped the badge onto the lapel of her charcoal blazer and tried not to look intimidated by the building around her. Everything inside Vale and Mercer Technologies looked expensive in a way designed to appear effortless. Matte black stone, soft lighting, silent elevators, employees moving quickly through hallways with the focused expressions of people who understood mistakes became headlines here. She still couldn't entirely believe she'd made it past the third interview. 3 months ago, she'd been sharing a one-bedroom apartment in Queens with a roommate who sold vintage jewelry online and cried over astrology podcasts. Now she was standing inside one of the most influential tech firms in the country, wearing shoes purchased on emergency credit and trying very hard not to think about how close she'd come to having her electricity shut off last winter. Life changed quietly until it changed all at once. First day, Evelyn turned. A man about her age leaned against the espresso bar near reception, sleeves rolled neatly to his elbows, expensive watch half hidden beneath them, dark blonde hair, easy smile. The kind of confidence that didn't need performance. "Is it that obvious?" she asked. "A little." He handed her a coffee before she could refuse. "Trust me, everybody has the same expression their first week here." "What expression is that?" "Like they're waiting for someone to discover they accidentally wandered into the wrong building." Despite herself, she laughed softly. Some tension eased from her shoulders. "I'm Daniel," he said. "Corporate strategy." "Evelyn, investor relations." "Condolences." "That bad?" "Depends how emotionally attached you are to sleep." Before she could answer, movement shifted across the executive floor. The atmosphere changed instantly. It was subtle. No alarms, no announcements, but conversations lowered half a register. People straightened unconsciously. Assistants moved faster. Evelyn looked up just as Alexander Mercer stepped out of the boardroom. He walked through the corridor surrounded by executives and legal counsel, listening while someone spoke rapidly beside him about acquisition numbers. Tall, controlled, impossibly composed. His attention never appeared divided, yet somehow he seemed aware of everything around him simultaneously. Power radiated from him in the quietest possible way. Not ego, expectation. The difference mattered. As he approached, employees shifted aside almost instinctively. Daniel muttered under his breath. "And there's the reason everyone in this building has hypertension." Evelyn should have looked away before Alexander noticed her watching. Instead, her eyes caught his for half a second. That was all. No smile, no acknowledgement, but something sharpened in his expression briefly, as if he cataloged people automatically, filing details away behind those unreadable gray eyes. Then he continued walking. The entire interaction lasted perhaps 2 seconds. It unsettled her anyway. "You okay?" Daniel asked. "Yes." She cleared her throat. "Does he always look like he's about to either buy a country or destroy one?" Daniel nearly choked on his coffee. "Jesus, don't let communications hear you say that." "So that's a yes." A reluctant grin crossed his face. "That's actually the friendliest description I've heard." Before Evelyn could respond, her tablet vibrated with a calendar notification. Mandatory executive review, 10 a.m. Location, East Conference Hall. Prepared by Office of the CEO. Her stomach tightened. Daniel noticed immediately. First executive review? Yes. You'll survive. The hesitation on his face suggested survival came with conditions. By 9:57 a.m., Evelyn understood why everyone feared executive reviews. The conference hall resembled a private war room more than a meeting space. Screens lined the walls displaying market forecasts, investor metrics, live international feeds. Rain traced silver lines against the enormous windows overlooking Midtown. At exactly 10, the doors opened. Conversation stopped. Alexander Mercer entered without visible urgency, though the entire room adjusted around his presence with almost mathematical precision. Executives sat straighter. Analysts reached for notes. Someone near the back quietly silenced a phone so fast it nearly hit the floor. Evelyn had met powerful men before. Professors, politicians, investors who liked hearing themselves talk. Alexander Mercer was different. He never performed authority because he never needed to. He took his seat at the head of the table while legal counsel continued briefing him on an acquisition issue in Singapore. He listened without interruption, fingers resting once against the black marble surface. Then his gaze lifted, directly to Evelyn. Not flirtation, not warmth, recognition. The smallest flicker of memory passing through his expression before he looked toward the presentation screen. Still, heat crept unexpectedly up her neck. Ridiculous. He probably recognized everyone who entered a room. Men like him succeeded by noticing details other people missed. "Let's begin," Alexander said. His voice was lower than she expected. Calm, controlled, impossible to ignore. The presentation moved quickly. Revenue projections, expansion timelines, risk analysis. Evelyn focused hard, taking notes, tracking numbers across the screen while senior executives debated international partnerships worth more money than she could mentally process. 40 minutes into the meeting, a vice president from acquisitions cleared his throat. "Our media exposure remains manageable provided the board approves the revised timeline." Alexander looked at the numbers once. "No." The single word landed sharply in the room. The vice president blinked. "I'm sorry. The timeline assumes regulatory cooperation that doesn't exist yet." Alexander leaned back slightly, which means either legal miscalculated or acquisitions rushed projections to satisfy the board. Silence. Nobody moved. The VP recovered carefully. "We believed the estimate was reasonable. You believed the board wanted optimism." Alexander's tone never changed. "That's not the same thing." Evelyn watched something uncomfortable flicker across the table. Fear. Not dramatic fear. Professional fear. The kind created when competence mattered here more than politics. And unexpectedly, she respected it. Because for the first time since entering corporate finance, she wasn't watching executives waste hours pretending obvious problems didn't exist. Alexander Mercer saw weaknesses instantly and refused to decorate them. The meeting continued. 10 minutes later, one of the financial models appeared on screen again. Evelyn frowned slightly. A projected valuation figure in the European expansion column looked wrong. Not massively wrong, but enough to distort quarterly forecasting. She checked the supporting file on her tablet, then checked it again. Her pulse ticked faster. Someone had duplicated a pre-adjustment tax estimate. A small mistake with very large consequences. She glanced around the room. No one else seemed to notice. "Don't say anything." The instinct arrived immediately. She was 26 years old. Temporary contract employee. First week. Correcting a senior executive in front of the CEO felt professionally suicidal. But the number was still wrong. And Alexander Mercer was already asking questions based on it. Evelyn inhaled once, then spoke before she could stop herself. "Those projections are using the outdated compliance figures." Silence dropped across the room so abruptly it almost felt physical. Several heads turned toward her at once. The acquisitions VP looked openly irritated. "Excuse me?" Evelyn's heartbeat thudded hard enough to hurt now, but she forced herself to continue. "The valuation model on slide 32. She kept her voice steady. It duplicates the tax structure from the earlier regional draft. The corrected numbers reduce projected margins by approximately 4.8%. Nobody spoke. Alexander's gaze settled fully on her for the first time. Not casually. Completely. It was astonishing how much pressure could exist inside simple eye contact. "Show me," he said quietly. Evelyn stood before her nerves could interfere, crossed to the display screen, and pulled up the supporting model with slightly trembling fingers. The room watched in absolute silence as she highlighted the duplicated figures. 3 seconds passed, then 4. Finally, Alexander looked toward the acquisitions VP. "Why am I hearing this from a first-week analyst instead of your department?" No one answered. The executive's face had gone pale. And for the first time since entering the building that morning, Evelyn realized exactly how dangerous competence could become inside a company like this, especially once someone powerful noticed it.